Today's daf, Be'ezras Hashem, is Masechta Bava Metzia Daf Kuf Yud, and we'll start from Daf Kuf Tes Amid Beis by the Gufa. It's like towards the last third of the Yomid. Gufa. Okay, here we're discussing about if you hire somebody. Hi Sheldon, we just began. Daf Kuf Tes Amid Beis from the words Gufa. Okay, so Gufa. So we learned previously, we're discussing over here, what are the arrangements when you have somebody managing your money? Managing your money means managing your field. In other words, you own a field and somebody takes charge of planting. He's in charge of planting and harvesting the field. So what are the financial arrangements between the two? So Amar Rab Menumei Bereid Rav Nechumi. Rab Menumei said in the name of Rab Nechumi, in the son of Rab Nechumi, Ba'asra the shakal shatola palga varisa tilsa. In a city that the owner takes half and half, and a planter takes half. Varisa tilsa varise tilte, and the sharecropper, the owner takes half, and varise takes a third. So, hi shatola, the boy is taluki. Let's say a guy who wants to quit his job, and normally a shatola gets half the profits. Yavine le shvache, we give him whatever he worked up until now, umasalkinele, and then you release him. But we kihecha the lifsid balabayis. So we do it in such a way that the owner should not lose out. So basically, what we're saying over here is that when a person who took charge of your field decides to quit on the job, so it doesn't mean he lost everything. We give him something, but we do it in such a way that that the owner does not lose out, because now he has to hire somebody else to replace you, to replace the person that took charge of planting the field. So the Gemara discusses now a different topic. Another statement from Rav Nechumi, the son of Rav Nechumi. He said, Kupa Saba Palga. Let's say a guy took charge of the field, and now the vines became so old that they're unusable. Sometimes if you have a vine that's been working for a few years, no grapes are going to grow from that vine. So what is the law regarding the wood from those vines? Does it belong to the owner of the field, or does it also belong to the one who took charge of planting the field? So the Gemara says, palga, you split it. Half of the wood of the vine goes to the owner, and half goes to the owner of the field. But shatfa nahara river. But let's say a flood flooded the field, and now the vines are not usable because they were been flooded out. So then the one that took charge of planting the field, he only gets a quarter, because this is shatfa nahara. It was like an unexpected event. A river overflowed, and therefore he doesn't get half. He just gets a quarter of what those vines are worth. Now the Bava says a story, and it's very you have to understand the way loans work. In the time of Chazal, it was called a surah loan. If you loan somebody money, so to make it easier on the person to pay back, the borrower allowed the lender to use his field, and they made up. Let's say the lender will tell the borrower will tell the lender, use my field for 10 years. Whatever happens to the field is yours. And after 10 years, you return it to me, and I don't have to pay the loan back because you had the benefit of using my field during all this time. So the Gemara says the story like this. Ahu Gavra, there was this person, the Mashkim Pardeise Lechavre. He gave as collateral his orchard to his friend, Le'asa Shin, for 10 years. I guess he loaned him money. So the borrower gave his land, his orchard, to the lender to use for 10 years. And as expected, V'kash l'chameshinin. After 5 years, the vines stopped producing fruit because they got so old. And this was expected. So now the question is, can the lender, who's now in charge of the field, can he just sell those vines and keep it? Or something else. Abaya Ama Peirahava. This is part of the fruits of the field. And just like the condition is that he can benefit from the fruits of the field, so the vines that get older have the same status as fruits, and therefore the lender continues to take those vines. They're not growing any fruit anymore. He'll sell them in the store for firewood or whatever. Rava says no. Karnahava, they're considered like the land itself, the principle itself, and that the lender has no right, because the lender has no right to the land. He's actually returning the land at the end of the term. So what you do with it, those vines that are unusable, what you do it is you sell it. The lokach by karka, and then you purchase from the proceeds a piece of land, and the lender could now eat fruits from the proceeds of selling those vines. So the question is whether vines that aged, are they like fruit or are they the actual principle? So let's see the Gemara. Meisvei, Yave Sho'ilim, if a tree dried up, or nitzatz, or it got chopped down, Shneim Asurim Boy. And Brisa tells us that a lender and the borrower is not allowed to use the tree or that got chopped down or that got dried out. In other words, again, the borrower and lender had an arrangement that the lender lent money, the borrower used his land as collateral so that the lender can benefit from that land for the term of the loan. And then at the end of the loan, he returns the land back to the borrower, and the loan is considered as if it's paid up. But what happens during the time that the land was in the possession of the borrower, of the lender, the tree dried up. So the Brisa says nobody can use that land. Kay said Yasa, what you do with the tree? You sell it for wood, karka, and you buy a piece of land, and he eats fruits. So that sounds like what Rava would say, that it just doesn't belong to the lender. It's actually shared between the borrower and the lender. So when a tree dries out, it's the same idea when a tree gets chopped down. When do you chop a tree down? When it's no more usable. After the tree dies, you chop it down. So also when it dries out, it dried out after it became no more usable. And the Brisa seems to align itself with Rava. You buy a piece of land, and the land belongs to the borrower, and the lender can continue to eating fruits. Alma, so we see karnahava. So we see that if a tree dries up and a vine dries up, it has a din of principle, not like a baya. Answer the Gemara, loy niktsas dumi de yavesh, my yavesh bloy b'zmanai af niktsas bloy b'zmanai. That in this case, even a baya would agree that it has a din like Karen. It's principle, not fruits, because this Brisa is talking about it dried up unexpectedly, and the tree got chopped down unexpectedly. So when it's unexpected, so then the lender had no intention of the tree itself to benefit as fruit. He always thought it will continue to produce fruit. So if it suddenly dries up unexpectedly, even Abaye would agree in this case that it has the same status as Karen, as principal, which means it's shared between the lender and the borrower. But Baya said his position was when it was expected to dry it up. You have an estimated lifespan of a vine, and it was expected to dry up during the term when the lender is holding on to the piece of land. In that case, it has a din like fruits, and it only belongs to the lender. Tashma, come in here. Naflula gafanam bezesim yimachru. We go to Yudama Aleph. Yimachru le'etzim uvilaka bam karkavu oichel peres. A man or his wife inherited some money, and therefore, if it was a piece of land, right, vines, and they became old. So what you do is you sell the wood and you buy a piece of land, and the husband continues to eat fruits. So what you see from there is that for sure, certainly, it has a din of Karen. Right, because always by your wife's assets, the principal belongs to her, and the husband can benefit from the fruits. And this is clearly something that says a tree that dried up The Torah, the Brisa says that it's really belongs to the woman and the husband. So therefore, you sell the wood and you buy a piece of land which belongs to her, and the husband continues to eat fruits, which seems to say like Rava. And says the Gemara, Ema v'hiskinu. You have to say that Brisa is also talking about that it suddenly became old. So if it suddenly became old, even Abaya would agree it has a din like Keren. The Iba is Ema. If you want, I can tell you, Lav mi oikimna lahi kagoin. Pardon me. Kshanaf lo besoda acheres dechol kali yakarna. Here we're talking about that what the woman inherited was only trees. Let's say her father, who passed away, the woman's father who passed away, only had trees, but did not own the land that was underneath the tree. So for certainly those trees always have a din like Karen, and therefore if they dry up, you sell the wood, you buy a new piece of land, and the husband will eat fruits. But that's a different story. What Abai is discussing. Abai is discussing where the tree itself dried up, but the land underneath still remains with the borrower. So if the tree dried up, the entire wood of the tree belongs to the lender, and that's where we leave it. New Gemara, Ahushtara. Again, remember that this arrangement of lending money to somebody, and the borrower puts up his land so that the lender could benefit from the land, and at the end of an agreed amount term, the lender returns the land back to the borrower, and the borrower does not have to pay any money for the loan. Says the Gemara, Hahushtara dahave kosabe shnin stama. There was a loan document that said that the lender could use the land of the borrower, and it didn't specify how many years. So when does this lender have to return the land back to the borrower? So again, because the document was written not right, Malva Oimer, the lender says, Shalish, I have a right to use this land for 3 years. Loiva Oimer Shtayim. But the borrower says you only had a right to use the land for 2 years. Says the Gemara, Mi Mehedman. Kada Malva V'Achla Peres. So what happened? The lender, instead of returning the land after 2 years, he held on to the land for a 3rd year and ate fruits. Maybe this was illegal. So Mi Nemen, who is believed in this case? Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda says, Karka b'chetzches ba'aleho kayama. The land belongs to belongs in the possession of the borrower, and therefore the borrower is believed, and therefore the lender who subsequently ate in the 3rd year has to return money back to the borrower. Rav Kahana says, no, payers becheskas oichlein kaima. We believe the lender, since he already ate the fruits, so it really belongs to him. He already ate it, and the onus is on the borrower to prove that the lender had no right to keep it for that 3rd year. And says the Gemara, v'hilchasa kavasi Rav Kahana, the law remains according to Rav Kahana, the Amma who said, Paris becheskes oichleim, that the one that ate the fruits can keep it. Says the Gemara, even though he does not own the land. Says the Gemara, v'kaimelam, don't we have a rule in halacha when it comes to Choshen Mishpat, the Hilchasei Kavasi Rav Nachman, that the halacha follows Rav Nachman, the Amar B'chaskis Ba'aleh, Charka B'chaskis Ba'aleh Ha'medis. If you know who the land really belongs to, then we always believe that person. And then Rav Nachman said his halacha in a certain case. So therefore, how could you paskin like Rav Kahana? How could you paskin like Rav Kahana when we paskin always like Rav Nachman, who says that the one that should win over here is actually the one that owns the piece of land, which is the borrower. And says the Gemara, the reason is Hassam, in the case that Rav Nachman's discussing, and you have to see what it's discussing. But it's milsa de ivide leglui here. It's really a suffix in halacha. We don't know who to paskin like. And because you don't know who to paskin like, so then the one that wins is the one that really owns the land. Hacha over here, it's not because you don't know what to paskin like. It's just an argument of what the terms were. And it could be that the people, like witnesses who know the terms, may come to Bezdin and start agreeing with the lender that he had a right to keep it for 3 years. So hacha over here, milsa da'avide legluyehi. It's something that could be revealed, and therefore, eventually, maybe it's possible Adam will come and say, "Hey, the malva is in the right." And therefore, if you're going to make the right now, initially, before that happens, you're going to make the lender pay the money to the borrower. You're going to have to bring them back to Beis Din and make the borrower pay back the lender. So we keep things the way they are. We don't try to open 2 court cases unnecessarily. And therefore, once the lucky lender ate up the fruits on the 3rd year, even though it wasn't clearly his, we let him keep it, and he doesn't have to pay back the borrower. And the borrower has on his responsibility, on onus, to prove that he's in the right. Malva oima chamish, because really, if you think about it, the borrower is really wrong. Why did he wait till the end of the 3rd year to start making a whole that the lender was wrong? Since he waited the whole 3rd year till the lender kept eating those fruits, so maybe the borrower is more wrong than the lender. Let's say malva oima chamish. The lender says I have a right to use the field for 5 years. Loiva oima shalish. The borrower says you only have a right to use the field for 3 years. Amalei. So the borrower says, "Aiseli shtarach." So the borrower says, bring me the loan document. It's clearly written in the loan document, either 3 or 5. Amalei. So the lender says, "Shtara irkisli." I lost the loan document. Amar Rav Yehuda. So Rav Yehuda said, "Malva nema." The lender is believed. Why is the lender believed? Migai the ibaya ama lakucha hi biyadi. Since the lender could have said that it is purchased, I purchased the land, right? The lender could have said, I purchased the land. So then and he would have kept the land because he already had the land for 3 years. He just wants to keep it for year number 4 and year number 5. So since the lender could have really messed up the borrower and said, "Oh, it's my land, I bought it, and I don't have to keep a document that I purchased it more than 3 years," so he could have been that way. Like this, we believe the lender and says, "Okay, you could use it for another 2 more years, but then you're going to have to return it back to the borrower." So that's why we're giving credence to the lender in that case. Amalei Papa Ravashi. Rav Papa said to Rav Ashi, Rav Zvid, Rav Vira le'svir lehu had Rav Yehuda. Rav Zvid and Rav Vira do not hold of what Rav Yehuda just said. Maish Tama, what's the reason? Because Rabbi Yehuda is very funny. He says, "Oh, the lender could have said a bigger lie by saying that he bought the land. Haishtara kivin the gavayinukani, since that loan document is trying to collect on a loan, right? Mizah Saribe, you should be careful not to lose that document. So why did you claim that you lost the document? You're just hiding the loan document because you want to eat another extra 2 years. So you said, "Oh, I lost it now," and then at the end of 5 years, you can find the loan document so you can or that's it. But a regular piece of land that you purchased, there is no reason why you should keep the deed, the purchase document more than 3 years. So therefore, this is suspect what Rav Yehuda just said. So we won't believe the lender over here. We'll believe the borrower, I guess. Amalei Ravina Rav Yehuda said to Rav Ashi, "Elmiata, let's examine every case. Hi mashkanta de sura, the cost of hachab. Mishlam shnai ilan tepek ar de loy b'chasav. Hechid the kafshas tam mashkanta v'amal lekuchi biyadi hachinami demhemen." Every type of arrangement like this, it could automatically lead to something very bad. Why? Because the lender is going to now hold on to the property of the borrower, and let's say the term of the amount that he could hold on to the property is 10 years. After 3 years, he's going to say, "Oh, I purchased this land from the borrower," and he'll say, "I lost the document. I lost the purchase document," and so the rabbis who say these types of mashkin collateral arrangements are good, are a good thing, it could lead to a bad thing. Couldn't the rabbis make something such a financial arrangement that could lead to a major loss on the borrower? the borrower is going to now be lost out of his field because the lender is going to claim, oh, this is not a collateral. This is a field that I purchased. Amalei. So Rav Ashi answered, Hosam takinile rabbanon demari are yav taske v'kari karya. Aria the leisla karya. So that we still maintain that the original owner, the borrower, still has to pay the taxes and do some sort of improvements on the land. That will certainly indicate that he's still owner of the field, and therefore such an event, such a case will not happen. Says the Gemara, let's say you have a land that there is no taxes and there's no improvements that need to be on the field. How will the borrower ever say that, hey, it's my field, it was put up as collateral, but not as a sale? So answers the Gemara, after 3 years, he should protest. He should file a claim in court saying that you should know this land is not a sale, it's actually a collateral. So the Gemara says, Lo imche mai. Let's say he didn't file a claim in court claiming that. What would be the din in that case? Answers the Gemara, Ihud hu da'afsid anafshe. He caused his own loss over here. Because if this is something that could happen, and you have no way of proving that you did not sell the land to your lender, so then you should be filing claims in court saying, hey, I want to make sure everybody is aware that I only gave it as collateral, not as a sale. And the fact that you didn't do that, so then the borrower is at fault over here, and he might end up losing his field if he's dealing with an unscrupulous lender who will claim now that he bought the field. Now the Gemara continues on to different financial arrangements where the person who made the arrangements has a disagreement with the owner. Oris, the sharecropper, says, I agreed that I was going to get half the profits of this field. And the owner of the field says, I only gave you a right for 30% of the profits, not 50%. Mi ne'eman, who is believed? Is it the owner of the field or the sharecropper? Rabbi Yehuda Omer Balabayas Neman. Rabbi Yehuda says the owner of the field is believed. Rav Nachman Omer Hakol Kamina Gamedina. You look at what other people do. Is it a half or a third? You examine the rules of the country, and that will determine who's in the right over here, whether the owner or the sharecropper. Savimine. So when the rabbis heard about this disagreement between Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Nachman, they said, "Loi pligi, nobody's arguing over here." Ha ba'asur deshaka arisa palga. In a city that normally a sharecropper takes half, so then we will say that the sharecropper is believed. But Rabbi Yehuda says that the balabayas is believed is ba'asur deshaka arisa tilsa. In a city where the balabai, where normally the rules of the country are that a sharecropper only takes a third, so there is no machlekes. Rav Mori, Rav Mori, the son of the daughter of Shmuel, Hachi Amar Abaya, this is what Abaya said. Even in a city where the sharecropper takes half, they argue. And even then, where the normal rules of the country is that a sharecropper will take 50%, if the owner says, I only agreed for 30%, Rabbi Yehuda will say that the owner is correct. Because Rabbi Yehuda says Balabayas Neman. In this case, the Balabayas would be believed. The Ibaya Oma Schira Lekitehu. He could have said that, this is not a sharecropper. He happens to be my employee. He gets nothing of the profits. So because he could have said a bigger lie, we'll believe him on whatever he says that the arrangement was 30%, even though most people, when they have a sharecropper arrangement, the arrangement is 50%. Now the Gemara continues. Yusaimim Amru, the orphans say. Now, a guy who forecloses on his field on his borrower's field, so he could foreclose on property. However, but let's say improvements of the property. Yusaimim Amru, the orphan says, Anu hishbachnu. We made improvements on the field. So the improvements, let's say they put in 50,000 into the field. You could foreclose on the field, but pay us our improvements that we invested. But the Balchayvima, the lender who's owed this money, says, your father made improvements on the field, and therefore this field had a lien on it, so I get those, whatever I foreclose on it, that it now becomes mine. I don't have to pay you a dime. Ami lahavi raya. Who has to prove? Is it the Yisayimim have to prove it or Baal Choy? So the Gemara says, we go to Amabei, Sava, Rab Chanina Lemeima, Ara Becheskes Yaim Chasus Yaim Yasmi Kaima. The land really belongs to the we give the favor to the orphans, and the lender has to prove that the father made those improvements. But an old man said Rabbi Yochanan disagreed. The proof is that the orphans have to prove that they made those improvements. My tama, what's the reason? Ara, a piece of land, since it has a lien on it, right? Command the Gavianame. We consider it as if it already belongs to the person who can foreclose on it, as if it belongs to the lender. And it's on the orphans that have to prove it. And the Gemara will just stop in 1 minute. Omar Abaya said, Alfanana Metinina, we learned same idea. Suffix zak kodem, suffix zak kodem, koitzitz venin noisim damin, alma kivin the make its kaima, amrina lahu, aisaraya shkal, hachanami, aishtara, kivin the gavaina kami, command the gavya dami, val yosim the havi raya. Okay, so basically Abaya brought a case from a Mishnah in Baba Basra, which proved the same idea, that something that's supposed to be done, we consider it done. So therefore, this piece of land that was that was going to be foreclosed upon because the borrower never paid back on his loan, we consider it as if it was foreclosed and the land really belongs to the lender. And so if the orphan said, oh, we made some improvements on the land after our father died, we want to get paid back for that, they have to prove it that they made those improvements after the father died. Other than that, if they don't prove it, then the lender will foreclose with the improvements on it. Okay, we'll stop over here. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.